Hey, guys. My name is Paula Sun, but you can call me the Change Navigator. I mean, that's why you clicked on the podcast because of the name, right? All right, cool. I want to begin by saying welcome to my new listeners and welcome back to the Faithful Navigators. We are here in season 2. And like I've been telling you guys, we are interviewing ordinary people doing extraordinary things. But let me be truthful about this one. So we actually did this recording earlier. And in the middle of the recording, the computer froze. So it stopped recording. So we went through like 40 minutes of talking and just great information, only to find out it only recorded 5 minutes of the interview. I was so heartbroken at the end of it. And I was like, you know what? We're not doing this again tonight. We're just going to have to try it again another day. So I want to say welcome to my guest, Kirsten Fontenot. Thank you for take two of this interview with Kirsten Fontenot. Welcome, Kirsten.
Hello, listeners.
All right, let me give you a little brief background about Kirsten. Kirsten was born and raised in Port Arthur, Texas, to Joseph, and Beverly Fontenot. She was the last of 4 kids. She graduated in 1997 from Abraham Lincoln High School, and then she moved to Louisiana, where she graduated from the Grambling State University, where everybody is somebody. She got it. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in therapeutic recreation and a Master of Science in Sports Administration. She has 2 lovely daughters. And her favorite verse in the Bible is from Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. So that's a brief bio about Kirsten. But let me tell you guys how I know Kirsten, okay? Kirsten and I were neighbors back in Monroe, Louisiana. We were neighbors from 2004 until I moved away in 2009, but we were neighbors. And I have this funny nickname that I call Kirsten. So here's the thing. We were neighbors, so I could literally walk across the grass and go to her house. Like walk across our
Reach out the window.
nicely manicured grass and go to her house. And we were both married at the time. And Kirsten had this ability, this it has to be an innate ability to know what to do when you weren't feeling well. You would think that Kirsten went to medical school because any ailment, anytime I was sick or if my girls didn't feel well, I would just go over and be like, "Hey doc, what you got? What do I need to do for this?" And I promise you guys, she always had what we needed. And then she had the nerve to say, okay, you're going to take this 2 times a day, this many hours between the time, and this should work. Let me know how this works. So I affectionately call her Doc. I used to call her Dr. Quinn, but I just call her Doc now. So this interview is actually going to be a little bit different. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. Because I know Kirsten so well, I'm just going to do a timeline and then I'm going to let her talk. So I need you guys to really pay attention because she's going to really share her story, like authentic, her story. And I really wanted to help you guys. So, Kirsten, tell the navigators about 2010.
In 2010, we were living in Monroe. My daughter was 8 years old, the oldest. She was sick. She was during the time of her state testing at school. She got really ill at school and they sent her home. We thought that she had a stomach virus. Um, and we treated it as a stomach virus. For 2 days, she was vomiting and just sick. But within those 2 days, she had also lost like 18 pounds. Um, Took her to the doctor. They ran a complete blood test on her to see what was going on, but it would take 24 hours to get the results back. Within that 24 hours, she was still going to school to take her test, but we would get her right after the testing was over. She only wanted to drink Gatorade and eat pineapples, and just to um, give her what she wanted because that was seemed to be the only thing that she could hold down and manage. That's what we were giving her. So later that night, got her ready for bed, and I was in the bed watching TV, I guess, and she walked into the bedroom and she was like, "Mama, I need to use the restroom." And before I could get out the bed to help her, she just completely passed out. And got up out my pajamas, threw on a robe, picked her up, went straight to the hospital. I mean, it was only like 5 minutes away. Got us to the hospital, sat nervous in anticipation, waiting to see what was going on. It took them a long time because she was so dehydrated from those 3 days, that they could not find a vein. But they came out probably about an hour and a half later, and they told me that she had diabetes, that her sugar was at a 950, and that she would have to go on an insulin regimen and this and that. I was in total disbelief because I know diabetes doesn't run in my family. I have never dealt with diabetes. I didn't know what we were going to do with the child on diabetes. I mean, my mom worked in the hospital. Of course, I would call and say, "Hey, what do I do?" But to deal with it on an everyday basis, I wasn't ready for that. And so I argued with the doctor, "No, you got to go back. You got to test for something else. You got to see what else it is. Maybe that test was wrong. Give me another answer." And of course they did, but came back with the same results.
Hmm. Wow. So you have an 8-year-old and she is sick, and you have to adjust and really change your life to make sure you're
Right.
taking care of her. How did your mother help you during this time?
Of course she was most keeper, what a lot of people might know, some don't. I had Mo the start probably 3 weeks into my grad school year, and she was okay. Mo is mine, basically. You finish school, you do what you have to do, and whenever you need us to take care of her, we'll take care of her. And they did that. Um, she thought Mo belonged to her, so when she got the phone call that Mo was sick, she was absolutely there. She was in the hospital telling the people, "Hey, this is not how you do this. This is how you do this, and she can't eat that. You need to give her this, and don't try to give her that because that's gonna make her sick." I'm like, "Listen, lady, this is not your hospital. This is not the hospital you work in. You got to go back to Port Arthur with that." But she was doing her motherly, nurturing thing, and it didn't stop her from being her. She was there for a few weeks, and she told me like the best way for me to understand what Mo was going through was to actually go through with her. So I decided that I got pricked. I got the needle stuck in me. I
Mm.
did everything that she would have to do in order to see what that child was going to have to go through. And it was hard for me. So I could not imagine what it would be for an 8-year-old to have to do this on an everyday basis, 3 or 4 times a day. I had to also learn how to explain to her what that was going to look like and what it was going to be like, because her life would no longer be normal as a child any longer.
Wow, that was some great advice from your mother, and to know that you went through that to be able to understand what she was experiencing, to put yourself in her shoes. And even as an adult, it was difficult, and like you said, her life would never be the same. So kudos to you, kudos to your mother for helping you with that. And now I understand why you knew what to do when somebody was sick, because your mother worked in the hospital
Oh
and you
yes,
was a
she
nurse.
she she never let us go to the hospital. So at home we had everything that the hospital had because she was bringing it home. Y'all not going to the hospital. You break your arm. We doing it right here. You're not in the kitchen. Come on, bring the arm. We finna wrap it up right here. It was not. Let's go to the hospital. I wanted crutches. I wanted a cast. Oh no, that's not happening. Give me that ace bandage. Let me get that for you.
I love it. I love it. So let's help the listeners understand. Let's transition to 2012. What happened in 2012?
So in 2012, I had taken a leave from work. Two of my cousins had been murdered in Monroe, and they gave me leave. I was close to those two cousins. It was kind of a deep family emergency, and I was on leave. And I had been on leave for a couple months, and I was getting ready to go back to work. Um, so every morning, of course, I would talk to my mama because we were off, and she would call, you cook them kids breakfast, you got them out for school, this and that. So particularly on September the 14th, we were on the phone gossiping, of course, and talking about some other things. And I got the kids ready. They went off to school. And of course, I talked to my mom about everything. And at the time, I was going through some things with my marriage. And, as a mother, she she would give advice. She never was the one to tell us what to do. Um, she wasn't gonna be the one to say, okay, leave. Never. She was too much into church and that type of stuff. But she would give her sound advice. And so that morning it was a little different though. It wasn't just, okay, this is the best thing to do, or maybe you should try this. It was more so of a storyline, basically, is what she kind of gave me. And we talked for like 6 hours and it was odd. She told me that I was gonna go through a divorce. She told me that me and my kids were gonna experience some changes, that I would probably have to move, um, that I would have to be real strong. She told me, though I would go through these things, that I should not fight through any of it. She was like, don't fight. She said, it's at the time, I think I had been married 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. And so she was like, endure, stick out to the 10. And once you hit that 10, get out as quick as you can, if it's not working. But she also said, continue and maintain being a good wife, continue and maintain being a good mother, do your part. And I heard all of that and I received it all. No rebuttal. I mean, because usually we can go toe to toe sometimes, but I received it all, and I ended up having to run errands. She ended up having to run errands. And so we kind of got off the phone. But I mean, the conversation was so deep. I walked out the house with the cordless phone. I'm still trying to talk. And I'm like, wait, gotta get off the phone. Let me hang up. And I just call you when I get back home. So I think I went, picked the girls up from school, came home. We went to the track. I walked a couple of miles, and then I went to take a shower. Came home, took a shower, and while I was in the shower, my oldest answered the phone, and she was like, "Mama, you got to get out the tub." And she was like, "Grandma's friend is on the phone," and she said that Grandma and Papa got into a car wreck. And so I was like, um, okay. And so I jumped out the tub, I grabbed the phone. And so one of the ladies of the church was like, hey, Rev and your mom got into a wreck. You need to come home. And so I'm like, okay, no, say less. And I get out the tub, I start packing. Because in my mind, it's like, if my mom got in a wreck, I'm going home. I'm going to make sure that she's okay. I'm staying there until she's better or whatever. And I'm just packing. The next phone call I get is from my mom's best friend who worked at the hospital with her. And she was like, Kirsten, don't rush. Your mom and stepdad were walking and a drunk driver hit them. So whereas in my mind, I was thinking they were in a car wreck, car to car, a car actually hit them. And so she said, get here when you can. It just wasn't registering. And so I prepared. I got my cousin to come and get the girls, and I'm packing up. I'm getting ready to leave. And I think I drove up the street and turned the corner. We were on 165 at the red light, and my brother called. And when my brother called, it was just nothing but crying. And so it was like, it was like one phone call was okay. The next phone call wasn't that great. And then the last phone call, I just knew. To hear my brother crying, I knew what that phone call meant. And I just couldn't take, anymore. And I knew, I kind of knew. And so my dad got on the phone and he said, don't rush. When you get here, don't come to this hospital, go to Beaumont, because my stepdad was at the hospital in Beaumont. He was like, we're going to take care of everything with your mom. He said, but my stepdad was asking for me. And I was like, okay. And me and my stepdad were really close. I was the only one living at the house when him and my mom got married. And so we made it there, got to Beaumont, and so ironically, my stepdad only wanted to talk to me.
Mhm.
Everyone had talked to my stepdad throughout the night and had let him know, what had happened, but he only wanted to talk to me.
Mm.
Um, it was a hard thing to do. They had told him that, exactly what happened, that my mom did not make it. And he only wanted to hear it from me. And that was hard because I don't think that at the time I had even accepted it in order to relay that message
Mhm.
to him. But um, I just waited because I didn't think that even still he was ready to accept it, because they told me that he was going in and out, and I felt maybe that's why he kept asking over and over. And it was too much.
Mhm.
It was a lot to accept in the moment.
So, did you get a chance to see your mom before
No.
the funeral? Okay. So
No,
you
well, not until the funeral home called us to come and view her, and it was so crazy. Like, me and my brother were silly. Um, my mom used to do this thing. When we go home and visit, she'd be in the bed, and we walk in there, like you getting up to cook breakfast or whatever, and she'd be laying in the bed like she's sleeping. So we walk up, and we'd be quiet, but then she'll jump up and be like, which I won't, is she's never asleep. And so when we went to see her, to view the body, it was like she was so perfect. It was like, although she had been hit or whatever, not one mark was on her. I
Mhm.
mean, absolutely nothing. She was unscathed, like just perfect. And so we were sitting there looking, and of course we're crying. And then, like, me and my brother just got like really quiet, and we bust out laughing. And so my sister, of course, she was like, "Why y'all laughing?" And in both in our minds, we were like, "She finna jump over and be like, what y'all looking at?" But of course, that wasn't the case. Of course, we
Mhm.
would want it to be. My
Mhm.
mom was just so much to us. I mean, there's nothing like that. There will be nothing ever like that for us. Nothing. She was just remarkable.
So, did you think once you got that bad news, and I don't know if in that moment or a few days later or months later, did you revisit that conversation and really think like, wow, this was it?
Um, Actually, Paula, um, after the funeral, um, the problem that I had was my husband at the time had already lost his mother, and he was not what I needed him to be in the moment that I lost my mama.
Mhm.
And it it was so much of what my mom had said on that phone call that made sense
Mhm.
in the moment. And so shortly after the funeral, I believe we went home to change clothes, and we were changing, and it was just him and I in the bedroom. And I looked over, and I had this feeling of nothing.
Mm.
And I instantly said to him, I said, I need you to understand that I've lost my mother, and you're next. I don't mind losing this.
Mm.
And that's where it started.
Wow. Okay. So, um, yeah, and I get it. And so I was, I remember where I was when you called me and told me about your mom. I was actually in church in Shreveport, and I stepped out and I was like, do I need to come back to Monroe? And you said, no, I'm headed to Port Arthur, but I just wanted you to know. So I remember how I felt. And so I can't even imagine what you felt and, what you continue to feel every year when that anniversary comes around, when Mother's Day comes around, when her birthday, um, to lose someone unexpectedly is something that nobody can prepare you for. There's no coaching, no reading, no books, no, because everybody's experience is different according to the relationship with that person. So um I continue to pray for you and marvel at your strength to keep going, your strength to keep living and being who you are. So, again, listeners, we are interviewing Kirsten Fontenot. She was my neighbor in Monroe, Louisiana. I affectionately call her Doc. So, Doc, take us to 2016.
So, a little bit before 2016 was when all of the divorce conversations started. Shortly after the funeral, actually, we agreed to make that happen. It was not growth anymore. We were not on the same page. We were not getting along. I thought I was doing the kids a favor to stay because I wanted them to grow up in a two-parent household, something that I did not have. But then I had to realize that that particular two-parent household was not healthy. Um, and as much as I wanted that for them, I had to realize that I could really hurt them to allow them to keep seeing the damage. And I didn't want them to grow up with that. So um, I tried for a long time. But then my oldest daughter approached me and she said, I want to go. I don't want to be here anymore. And that was kind of hard because I then realized that was I really doing it for them or was I doing it because I was comfortable? What was my real reason in doing it? Because I was really afraid of change. I will be honest, I never ever thought that I would make any moves. I'm pretty much, if I'm in a situation, I'm just gonna stay there.
Mhm.
I'll stick it out, but I could not do that anymore. I had gotten into several terrible altercations, and it wasn't me. That's one thing I had to realize. It wasn't me. I was becoming somebody that I no longer recognized. And so the best thing was to just not do it anymore.
Mhm.
And even though we had agreed, once the papers came and they were kind of finalized, it became real ugly. It was fighting, and this is not what I wanted, and we agreed to this, and so much changed. And unfortunately, I left, and me and the girls stayed gone for a little while until there was a decision made by the courts that we could move back in the house and he move out. He did not. Even court ordered, he did not. We had to live with a neighbor for about 3 months.
Mm.
Unfortunately, it was right next door. We had to see him every day. Even being right next door, that was an ugly situation. Um, but then he did have to leave, and then me and the girls moved into the house. And at the time, I had gotten into this whole zone of that. God, just give me something.
Mhm.
This is not working. The way that I'm doing it is not working. What I'm trying to give my girls is not working. None of this is working. Nothing that I think is making sense is making sense. um I needed a change, and so I started praying that God would allow me to enter into something new. um we moved into the house. We stayed, I guess it probably was 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. It was not long. It started raining in Monroe, and it rained for 4 days. And it flooded. And Town and Country was known for flooding. And the house flooded, of course. And we left and we went and stayed with a friend. And not knowing that we would not be able to go right back home because the city was pumping water into the neighborhood. The water stayed in the neighborhood for 3 weeks. And so we weren't able to go into the house. So by the time they allowed us to go and see, by that time, water in the house for 3 weeks, of course, nothing is anything. And so the houses on the end of the street were okay because they were on a higher
Mhm.
sector. And then the ones in the middle, it was like a bowl almost. So I went to the neighbors on the end and put on like some boots and a sticker suit, and I walked. And so as I was walking through this water that was up to my probably my waistline,
Mm.
I was thinking like, what am I about to see? What am I about to walk into? And I couldn't walk through the doors because the water was still high and the windows were set a little higher. So I had to go through a window, and instantly I just saw everything. Everything was just wet. Everything was destroyed. Um, and I just looked at the moment. I walked through every room and I just looked at everything. I looked at the tiles that had been popped up off the floor, the wood, and I just looked at everything. And I walked out and I walked back down the street and I got out of the little suit and I cried for maybe 30 seconds, if that. And I had to get myself together. And I'm like, dummy, what are you crying for? And although I had realized in that moment I lost absolutely everything, kids, baby pictures, life pictures, family pictures, my mom's funeral stuff, like the last things that I had of her, um, everything, absolutely everything. What am I crying for? It was stuff. Yeah, it's easy to say it's stuff, but that was everything that I had put money to, everything that I had built. But what hit me was the fact that I had prayed for that. I didn't specifically ask God how to give me new, so that was my fault. But in that moment when I had to suck up those tears and the realization came, what did hit me was you prayed for God to give you new. And the God that I know is not going to start me over new with old stuff. And so I dried up my tears at that moment and I just decided, hey, we gotta now is what we're gonna figure out what's next. That's all I could go with at the time. It was no longer crying over it. It was what's next.
Mhm. I love that God is not going to give me something new with old stuff. And like the Bible says, you can't put new wine in old wine skins.
Exactly.
So here we are. Miss Kirsten, who doesn't like change, Miss Kirsten, who has to start over, who has gone through some pretty challenging times in life from 2010 to 2016. So, again, Miss Kirsten, who doesn't like change, what did you do?
Um, I sat for days, and FEMA did step up, and they did a lot. And so I just questioned what was I gonna do next. That previous summer we had traveled to Austin for a cheerleader competition, and so Austin just laid on my mind kind of heavy. And so I considered, of course, I always wanted to come back to Texas because it's home. I just didn't want to be home. I didn't really want to go to Houston. I didn't really want to go to Dallas. And so Austin was heavy on my mind. And I started making considerations to come to Austin. And the next thing was money. And FEMA was doing a lot. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll let this add up. And I was saving that money. And then I spoke with a friend, David Burris, who was so instrumental at the time. He's very encouraging and he's such a good coach. And I said, he was like, so what are you gonna do? And I was like, I want to make this move. I was like, but what if when I get there this, and what if when I get there this, and what if this? And he was like, Kirsten, what if the provisions are already made? And I heard him and I was like, who asked you to say that? Basically, was my thought, like who told you to have such common sense? And, we got off the phone and I'm sitting at work. And as soon as we got off the phone, I get this notification from Chase that I had this substantial deposit. And so I'm like, wait, what's this? What's this? And so I clicked on it and it was like over $6,000 had been deposited into my account. And I'm like, who the hell is this? And so it was a back pay for some child support. And I was like, okay, God, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I was visiting, I seen this lady's billboard. Her name was Jen Griffith. She's so incredible, and we still communicate today. She's a realtor. And I called her and I was like, hey, I want to move to Austin. I'm living in Louisiana, and this is what I got. And I'm going to send you this amount of money, and I just need you to put it on places. And everything at that point was based on faith because she couldn't show me a lot. And I basically sent this lady $5,000. And I told her, do what you have to, put, money wherever. And she was like, I'm going to put it here, and whatever don't go, I'll send you the money back. Whatever goes, it's going to stay. I know what you're looking for. You've pretty much told me what you like. Just trust me and I'll do it. And to be honest with you, I didn't even see where I was going to be living at until I came here. I didn't know what the apartment was going to look like. I didn't even know the neighborhood. I didn't know anything. I just basically trusted her, trusted God. And when she told me it's a go, y'all need to be here on the 15th. Um, 2 days before, I got a U-Haul. I packed up the little bit of stuff that we had, put it on the U-Haul, and we got up early that morning, about 4 in the morning, and we drove here, and we made it in time to meet the lady at the office, and I got keys.
That's amazing how all of this stuff worked out. Uh, just like God scripted it. We can't script our lives any better than God. He knows our end from the beginning, and he knows the middle, the meantime.
Mhm.
So for you to trust God like that, and for ways to just be made like that, it's really mind blowing. And I remember I actually came to visit you a week after you moved
Yes,
there.
you did. You were my first visitor. Yes.
Yes, I was like, because I had never been to Austin, so that was like a perfect opportunity for me to come to Austin, and I hadn't seen you in a little while. So, and even then, I was just amazed. I'm still amazed at your strength, and you may not think you're strong, or the Bible says His strength is made perfect in our weakness. So I may be seeing God's strength on display in your life, but I still marvel at it. And you say you don't do change well, but I've watched you navigate through so many different things. I've watched you. I've sat back and I've watched you, and I've learned so much from you. You even introduced me to Coach David Burris, and he has been instrumental in my life in this season of my life. So we are here in 2020. How is life for Kirsten Fontenot now?
Life is great. Through all of that change, one thing that I learned is you have to heal. Yeah, it's a lot of strength that comes with it, but even the strongest person gets tired. Even the strongest person needs a hug. Even the strongest person, needs to sit down and cry. And I have cried. I am tough on the outside, but I am soft as Charmin on the inside. And there are days when even on my toughest days, I can really sit somewhere and I have a huge cry in me. And, there's been times when I've called you and I said, Paula, I got to cry in me and I got to let it out. And it's just those things, because sometimes it just gets overwhelming because I don't take a moment. I just keep pushing. I keep pushing. I gotta keep pushing. I got two girls watching me.
Mhm.
I got it's no stopping point for me. But right now in 2020, I sit and I love where I am. Life has been so good. This new season has been has been wonderful. Um, I have not gone without. Not to say that there hasn't been tight times, but I have not gone without anything ever. As much as I was afraid of the provisions, as much as I was afraid of the change, this has been so easy. um Everything for me and my girls, that so much has just come. There's times when I could start off the month and I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to get this done, but by the end of the month it's absolutely done. And it's just amazing to watch God work, to watch God provide, and for me to learn, and for me to check myself to say, you know um why were you even tripping? Like, this is the same God that, changed all of this around for you then, and made these big, huge changes to bring you here. What make you think he won't just continue to, do that and provide? And so I have to check myself a lot. But yeah, 2020 is, I mean, it's bad for some people, but it's good.
Yes, and I love to see you smile. And I can always tell when it's really good. So we are getting ready to wrap this up. But Kirsten, I want you to let the listeners know what is the core, your message that you want to leave with them.
One thing that I've learned and one thing that sticks with me is something that I tell my girls that I wish someone would have told me early on, is to thine own self be true. Um, no one else is going to be true to you. Um, be true to yourself. Always trust what you feel. Um, people are going to lie. People are going to say what feels good. Um, but when you know deep inside that it's just not real, don't sell yourself short just for the moment. Don't sell yourself short because it feels good. Don't sell yourself short because it looks good or it's different. Give yourself what you're worth. Like, um that's what we do too much. We do too much of the just going along to get along, and that's where we fail. I have said many times, and it was a struggle with the transition to get past some things. But for me to get past those things, I had to be true to me, and I had to check Kirsten and say, what are you accountable for?
Mm.
What was it that you did that ultimately caused you to stay longer or caused you to be in that farther than what you should have? And it was a lot that was my fault. It
Mhm.
was some things that I could have done, way before 2015.
Mhm.
And so with that, I should have been true to me and made me happy rather than pleasing someone else. So I'll say again, be true to you, because at the end of the day, you're all you got,
Mm.
and you're the only one that's gonna just satisfy, that inner core. Like, you have to deal with your emotions, you have to satisfy all of that, you have to make you happy, because it's no one's else responsibility to make you happy.
Mm. I love it. Be true to you is no one else's responsibility to make you happy. So, yeah. Thank you, Kirsten, for that mouthful, for that wisdom, for sharing, and just for being so transparent with us. And before we go, can you let the listeners know how they can find you on social media?
I am on Facebook as Kirsten Fontenot. I am on Instagram as PA underscore made underscore me, Port Arthur made me. And I'm on Snapchat, but of course, just for the filters and the pictures, I don't know my name. Don't know it. So, you know how that goes. Once you hit 40, all of that don't even matter.
Right. All right. Again, thank you, Kirsten, so much for sharing your story with us. And thank you, navigators, for listening. And until next time, keep going, navigators. Bye bye.
Bye bye.